The 1970s produced some of the most ferocious rock bands in history. Many of them packed arenas, sold millions of records, and dominated FM radio. Then, almost overnight, the world moved on. These are 12 faded bands everyone forgot were absolutely massive in the 70s. Number 12, Grand Funk Railroad. Selling out Shea Stadium in just 72 hours on July 9th, 1971, faster than the Beatles had managed in August 1965. That is where Grand Funk Railroad stood, and the music press actively despised them for it. Rolling Stone ran dismissive coverage. Critics mocked them relentlessly. Fans, however, showed up in their tens of thousands, and the band released a string of gold and platinum certified albums throughout the decade. Their commercial peak arrived in 1973 when We're an American Band hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, followed by a second chart topper with The Locomotion in 1974. That back-to-back number 1 run placed them in rare company for American rock bands of the era. Changing tastes fractured their audience by mid-decade, and Grand Funk dissolved in 1976. Bands like Kiss, Aerosmith, and Ted Nugent all pointed to them as a foundational American hard rock influence. Number 11, Humble Pie. A celebrated run of sold-out shows at the Fillmore East in New York City in May 1971 produced what became one of the most beloved live rock recordings of the entire decade. That performance became Performance, Rockin' the Fillmore, released in November 1971, and it reached number 21 on the Billboard 200, eventually earning the band their first RIAA Gold record. Shortly before the album's release, guitarist Peter Frampton departed the band because of growing friction with frontman Steve Marriott. Frampton later reflected on the experience with genuine warmth, saying the band did more for his musicality, his playing, and his sense of how a band should be. After Frampton's exit, Humble Pie moved toward an even harder sound built around Marriott's raw blues and soul roots. They never again reached that commercial peak, and today they remain criminally overlooked. Number 10, Mountain. In 1969, nobody in American rock was quite as heavy as Leslie West. Built around West's crushing guitar tone and the production savvy of bassist Felix Pappalardi, who had produced Cream's most celebrated albums, Mountain arrived fully formed and immediately massive. They performed at Woodstock before releasing a proper album, and their 1970 single Mississippi Queen became one of the defining hard rock riffs of the entire decade. Mountain packed venues throughout the early 70s and earned a devoted following on both sides of the Atlantic. Pappalardi's tragic death in 1983 effectively closed the book on any lasting reunion, and today Mountain exists mostly as a footnote for music historians. Their influence, however, runs deep. Black Sabbath, Wolfmother, and Jack White have all cited West's bulldozing approach as a direct template for heavy EO guitar. Number 9, Montrose. Eddie Van Halen told Sammy Hagar directly that Montrose was his favorite band, describing himself as a Montrose freak, and crediting Ronnie Montrose's open-chord guitar approach as a primary influence on his own technique. That endorsement from one of the greatest guitarists who ever lived should have kept Montrose in the conversation permanently. It did not. Formed with Hagar on lead vocals, the self-titled debut album was released in late 1973 and eventually sold over 1 million copies, attaining platinum status in 1986. The debut was voted the 4th best metal album of all time by Kerrang! Magazine in 1989. Warner Brothers famously did not know how to market the band, already having the Doobie Brothers and Deep Purple on their roster.
Have you heard the news? It's good rockin' tonight. I'm gonna squeeze you, baby.
Hagar and Ronnie Montrose parted ways acrimoniously in February 1975 after tensions boiled over during a European tour. Ronnie Montrose passed away in March 2012. The album they made together remains a landmark.
I wanna meet you in the alley out behind the barn. Don't be afraid, I'll do you no harm. Bring along your test dances.
Before we continue, which of these bands hits closest to home for you? Did you ever catch any of them live back in the day? Drop a comment below and let us know where in the world you are watching from. Number 8. Bachman-Turner Overdrive. More than 20 record label rejections before Mercury Records finally said yes. That is how long it took Bachman-Turner Overdrive to get their foot in the door, and once they did, they made sure it counted. The Canadian hard rock outfit released their debut album in 1973, and the momentum they built from relentless touring turned that modest start into one of rock's great underdog stories. Their second album, Bachman-Turner Overdrive 2, rose to number 4 on the Billboard 200 and yielded Let It Ride at number 23 and Taking Care of Business at number 12. Their 1974 album, Not Fragile, topped the U.S. album chart entirely, generating the number 1 single You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. The band sold over 30 million albums worldwide across their peak years. Randy Bachman left in 1977, and the commercial momentum never fully recovered. Their blue-collar hard rock has never sounded dated to anyone who grew up with it. Number 7. Uriah Heep. 7 consecutive UK Top 40 albums between 1971 and 1975. A fan base across Europe so loyal that the band sold out arenas for the better part of a decade. Those are not the numbers of a band anyone should have forgotten. Yet ask a casual music fan today about Uriah Heep, and you will likely draw a blank stare.
The sunrise and you.
Formed in London in 1969, the band combined Hammond organ-driven hard rock with layered vocal harmonies that nobody else was producing at the time. Their 1972 album Demons and Wizards became their biggest international breakthrough, charting in both the US and UK Top 40 simultaneously.
I was only 17, fell in love with a gypsy queen.
Lineup changes throughout the decade gradually diluted the original chemistry, and the arrival of punk and new wave further shrunk their audience. They still tour today, and loyalists still show up, but the mainstream left them behind long ago, and that remains one of rock history's quieter injustices.
He was the wizard of 1,000 kings.
Number 6. Foghat. Three founding members had already made their name with Savoy Brown before walking away in 1970 to start something entirely new. Dave Peverett, known as Lonesome Dave, brought Tony Stevens on bass and Roger Earl on drums with him, and the four-piece they formed relocated to America and built one of the most relentless touring operations in hard rock. Slow Ride, the lead single from their 5th studio album Fool for the City, climbed to number 20 on the Billboard Hot 100 in early 1976. But their real power was always on record. Foghat Live became their best-selling release, going double platinum in the United States.
I don't want you, be no slave. I don't want you, work all day.
Lonesome Dave Peverett, the creative and emotional heart of the band, passed away on February 7, 2000 after battling cancer. Foghat continues to tour with surviving members, a testament to how much that boogie-driven hard rock still means to a devoted audience.
By the way that you switch your walk, see
Number 5. Budgie. Metallica covered them twice. Breadfan and Crash Course in Brain Surgery both appeared on official Metallica releases, and the band spoke openly about Budgie's influence on their early sound. That kind of endorsement from the biggest metal band on the planet should have permanently elevated Budgie into the rock conversation. It barely made a dent. The Welsh trio formed in Cardiff in 1967 and spent the early 70s releasing a string of albums that bridged hard rock and proto-metal before those terms even existed. Their 1973 album Never Turn Your Back on a Friend and 1974's In for the Kill remain essential listening for anyone curious about where heavy music actually came from. Despite almost zero mainstream radio support, Budgie built a passionate international following purely through live performance. They never crossed over, they never chased a hit, they simply played heavier than almost anyone else of their era, and the right people were listening. Which of these bands did you already know? And which one surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. We read every single one. Number 4. Trapeze.
Get up to the rhythm, stop back in your hands. You don't need the words now. Let's see them on the stage.
At just 18 years old, Glenn Hughes was already being called one of the most gifted bass players and vocalists in British rock. He found his first real home in Trapeze, a Midlands band originally signed to the Moody Blues Threshold label, where his soulful, high-register voice sat on top of a surprisingly heavy rhythm section.
You are the music. We are the lady.
Their 1972 album, You Are the Music, We're Just the Band, showcased exactly what the band could do when everything clicked. The tragedy of Trapeze is that their best players became famous for their next jobs. Hughes left in 1973 to join Deep Purple at the height of that band's commercial power. Drummer Dave Holland went on to hold the seat in Judas Priest for a full decade. The band that built both of them has been almost entirely erased from popular memory, surviving only in the collections. Of hardcore 70s rock devotees who know where to look. Number 3. Atomic Rooster. Devil's Answer cracked the UK Top 5 in 1971, reaching number 4 and giving Atomic Rooster one of the most distinctive chart hits of the era. Founded by former Crazy World of Arthur Brown keyboardist Vincent Crane, the band built a sound around grinding organ riffs and dark, heavy arrangements that predated doom metal by several years. Their 1970 album, Death Walks Behind You, remains one of the heaviest British records of its decade. Internal tensions and the unpredictable nature of Crane's personal struggles fractured the band repeatedly throughout the 70s. They dissolved in 1975 before Crane assembled a new version in 1980, with David Gilmour of Pink Floyd appearing as a guest on their 1983 return album, Headline News. Atomic Rooster never recaptured their early momentum. Crane passed away in 1989. What they left behind is a catalog far too powerful to have been this completely forgotten. Number 2. The Edgar Winter Group. Frankenstein topped the U.S. Billboard Hot 100 for 1 week in May 1973, selling over 1 million copies and becoming one of the most distinctive instrumental rock hits the decade produced. The crushing guitar riff came courtesy of Ronnie Montrose, who left the Edgar Winter Group shortly after to form his own band.
Couldn't stop moving when it first took hold.
The album behind it, They Only Come Out at Night, peaked at number 3 on the Billboard 200 and stayed on the charts for an extraordinary 80 weeks. Winter's multi-instrumental approach, trading between keyboards, saxophone, and guitar in a single set, made the Edgar Winter Group a genuinely unique live act for the era. Free Ride followed Frankenstein as another radio staple, cementing the album's commercial durability.
Rock and roll, hoochie coo. Well, go now, let's spread the news.
Montrose's departure changed the chemistry permanently, and while subsequent releases earned solid followings, none matched that 1973 peak. The full weight of what the Edgar Winter Group accomplished in that brief window rarely gets the recognition it deserves.
So I've come here to give you a hand and lead you into...
Number 1. Nazareth. Hair of the Dog is the 6th studio album by the Scottish hard rock band Nazareth, released in April 1975, and it became the group's best-known and highest-selling release, with over 2 million copies sold worldwide. The title track's unforgettable central riff became one of the defining moments of the entire decade, covered and referenced by hard rock acts for years afterward. The album's Love Hurts gave the band their biggest American moment, climbing to number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100 in March 1976, and introducing Nazareth to an entirely new audience across North America. The influence ran deeper than most casual fans realize. Guns N' Roses frontman Axl Rose mentioned Nazareth vocalist Dan McCafferty's work on Love Hurts as being formative to his own early vocal development. Nazareth continued releasing albums and touring steadily through the late 70s and beyond. They built something durable, something honest, and for a generation of rock fans who found them at exactly the right moment, Nazareth sounded like nothing else in the world.